welcome one, welcome on. It's another beautiful day. It's a beautiful day to be great, and it's a great day to be great. I'm just repeating myself, but it's all good. You know how we started out. We come in fully loaded, hot and heavy, and I'm just gonna get right into it. Welcome to the Shutter Saga Podcast. I'm your host, Marvin Blue. This is a listener-supported, fan-supported podcast, supported by the very people that listen to us, as well as our wonderful sponsors. A couple ways to support the show is to like, listen, follow, share the page to your friends. Make sure they're listening, make sure they're jumping on board, and then also supporting the sponsors that sponsors our shows. This week's sponsors for this episode is actually, we have two this week. We have Pro Prints. You guys have heard me say it more than once. If you are going to put up wall displays, if you got clients and you're selling products too, canvases, acrylics, metals, you name it, you want to go with a company that's going to make you stand out heads and shoulders above everyone else. So Pro Prints, just reach out to me. We got a couple cool promo codes, so just shoot us an email or hit us up on Instagram. Tell us you want to take advantage of one of those discounts, and I'll make sure I get it to you. Also, our OG sponsors, our boys, Cheetah Stands. What can we say? If you are out there and you're in the elements like we are, and you need light stands that are going to match the intensity that you bring to every shoot that you come out with, and you don't want to be replacing your light stands every 6 months, 7 months. You want to replace your light stands every 5 and 6 years. That's where Cheetah Stands comes in. You use promo code Shutter Saga Podcast, and you will get yourself 10% off your orders. Like I said, they will take care of you. They got outstanding customer service. They're easy to work with, and they have been day one sponsors, and they are supporters of the show, friends of the show. So support our sponsors and continue to support the show. Thank you so much. My guest this episode, and I can go down the list of all of his accomplishments. I can go down the list of all his ambassadorships. I can just go down the list of, who he is as an individual, but I'm just going to cut straight to it. No sizzle. Ladies and gentlemen, I got Sean Lara in the house. Sean, how you doing, my man?
Dude, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to chat with you a little bit this afternoon.
I was actually scared because it's like, okay, I'm finally going to get a guest on the show that's like, notoriously better looking than me. So I was like, oh, we got Sean coming in. I got to, make sure I put on the fancy blue shirt or something because I knew he was going to come in. You're coming in to us from Colorado, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, nice and cold Colorado.
Yes, my old stomping grounds. If those of y'all that were not privy to know, I used to be in the Army, and I used to be down there in the wonderful, beautiful mountainous city of Colorado Springs, based out of Fort Carson, Colorado. So I know the Colorado lifestyle well too easy. I used to go spend weekends out there in Breckenridge, snowboarding.
Yeah, heck right. Yeah.
A black dude snowboarding. If you guys out there in the early 2000s, you would have saw it.
It's very, I was about to say, it's very rare. You don't see that very often out here.
Yes. But you're in Denver though, right? Or is it?
I'm a little north of Denver. I'm in Fort Collins, which is about an hour north of Denver. But I tell people I'm based out of Estes Park just because I do pretty much all my work up there.
Nice. So, yeah. Sean, let's go right into it. How long have you called yourself a photographer?
Well, wow. I've called myself a photographer for, pretty much my entire life. It's always something I've really been interested in, always something I've been very passionate about. But I would say, I've been a professional photographer for, I'm on my 15th year now. So quite some time.
Nice. So you've been through like all the stages and levels of like what we talk about on the show. Those of us that have had fortunate to have a 10+ year career, we talk about the early days and then how things have changed over the years. But what were some of your best early memories when you first picked up that camera?
Oh man, I would say for me, it was just that initial exploration phase where I was really discovering my passion and learning my hobby and just, doing it without being under the pressure of, meeting the demands of a client or of a newspaper editor or whatever it may be. So for me, that was, picking up a camera like on my family vacations when I was younger, taking photos of, the scenery, or if I was, fishing and grabbing a camera with me to take photos while I was out in the water. Those kind of early memories really helped spark that passion for me. And as I got deeper and deeper into it and realized, hey, I might be able to actually do this as a career, that's where I started to fall even more in love with it as well.
When did you feel that you had that aha moment where it became a career versus a hobby? You said, I'm going all in and putting my name next to it.
Believe it or not, probably my biggest moment, I remember it very vividly, is actually the first time I attended WPPI, which for those of you who do not know what that is, it's a big wedding and portrait photography conference that happens in Vegas every year. And I went very early on in my career. My first year was 2012. So I was about 2 years into capturing weddings at this point. And, after seeing how there were all these photographers there that were, in my mind, quite successful and building these really amazing businesses, being wedding photographers. That was the moment where I was like, oh wow, like you can actually make a decent living doing this. And then ever since then, I've just kind of been giving it 100%, and it brings us to where I am now today. I can pay my bills taking photos, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. I always say when you can make a career from it, that's when, to me, I feel like you come, that true mark of success. Like everyone thinks it's the money or the certain number you need to hit, but I always say, look, if you look up and your bills are paid and you get to call your shots, I mean, you can't ask for more.
Absolutely.
That's
very
what
true.
it does for you. So, going back to 2012, first time with WPPI, because my first time was actually 2013, so I was right behind you.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm talking like fresh out the boat, Vista print business cards, like showing
Yep.
out. I'm like so excited. But when you first broke into it, who were the names of the people that are like early influenced, or just, I don't like to say who's your early influences, but who are the ones that like scared you in photography when you saw the work? You're like, okay, there's levels, and that's that first level I want to attack and try to, be regarded in the same conversations with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say probably one of the bigger names that really influenced me early on, and a photographer that really I wanted to aspire to at their level, or to get to their level, was Joe McNally. He is an ambassador for Nikon, and he is really big on the use of creative lighting. And seeing what he was able to do with lighting was really intriguing to me and really interesting. But not only just what he could do with light, but how he was able to do it all with portable lighting. And as photographers on location, especially with wedding photographers, you don't have the ability and the opportunity to take all this equipment with you, especially not as a single photographer that doesn't really bring assistance. So it was really intriguing to me what he was able to do, and doing it at such a high level as well. He was early on a very big inspiration for me.
Very familiar with Joe McNally. As I refer to him, he is a legend in the game. And then speaking of, early in the game, I always like to ask the question, what was that first camera that you got you started?
Yeah, I mean, for me, as far as like discovering my passion, it was just like an old Vivitar film camera, nothing fancy, but the first camera the first like professional quality camera, the first DSLR I ever had, or the first camera that I really started taking photos seriously on, was a Nikon D70 right after it came out.
I thought you were going to say D5000. I was going to say, oh my gosh, we have the same camera.
No, close though, close, not too
close,
far
yeah.
off.
I still remember when I went to Best Buy, they were like, I was like so excited, and then I got around quote unquote real photographers, and they were like, yeah, dude, that's not a real camera. I'm like, it felt real when I paid for it.
No kidding. Yeah, and same with the D70. It was one of those cameras that, was kind of that entry level prosumer camera, where sure there was nicer stuff out there, but at the time it definitely felt like a pro level camera to me. I mean, I was just being ignorant, but yeah, no, it's very similar. The 5000 I think just came out very shortly after the D70, so we kind of started around that same time era.
Oh yeah, I always say we all started somewhere. Like I would love to say like started out right out the gate, best camera in the game, whatever. But it was one of those we had test phase. Like, hey, is this gonna be for real, or is this gonna be just something I do on the weekends and be that person
Exactly.
with a cool camera? That when I'm amongst friends, I get taken seriously. But this is as far as it goes, or is this something that I'm this going to be that equipment that I dare to be great with and try to do something more? So
right.
that's how you probably call it. Exactly what I mean.
Exactly. Yeah, it's you got to start somewhere, and it is really funny. You don't need really nice equipment, whether in any industry, right, to get started. I mean, I've been to, I've seen people get these absolutely incredible images. Let me actually give you an example. I did a workshop last year, or this past year, where had a bunch of really high level photographers attend, and at least in my mind, and one of the students had a Canon 5D Mark II, which by today's technology is very ancient. And she had a old 70-200 that the focusing wasn't even working on it. She had to manually focus everything. This was borrowed equipment that she's basically never used before, and her photos were probably some of the best out of everyone else in that workshop. So it just goes to show, like, you don't need nice equipment. Sure, it helps, but you don't need nice equipment to get good photos.
I don't like the 5D Mark II. When I switched over to a full frame camera, that was my first
Yeah,
camera that I was able to get used, and I remember I felt like, oh, I made it to the dance. And
right.
a couple years later, mirrorless came out and changed the way we do everything now. But
Yeah, still a great camera, but by today's standards, very ancient technology.
yeah, it's crazy because it just feels like yesterday it was like that expensive. Like I remember when everybody had the Mark IIs and the Mark IIIs came out, and everyone was trying to sell them off real quick and try to get the Mark IIIs. And then by the time people got their hands on the Mark IIIs, then mirrorless started really hitting the world by wire. It hit the industry by like wildfire to me. Because I think it was like Blink, it was the A6000 from Sony that came out, and then next thing you know, everybody was like running and buying one. And first thing we said was, these things are so light, it's scary.
Right.
A big difference. But I mean, just looking back at the timeline of our industry and where we're at, when did you feel like you started bringing it together? I know you mentioned like how you got started, but when did it start like coming together in a level where you know you now are part of, like, you walk amongst a lot of industry leaders when we talk about, we use Pro Prince, for example, the
Mm-hmm.
Invitational. Your name is always in the conversation. So it's like your name is in those conversations for being one of the best, all around photographers. So when did all that come together?
Yeah. So for me, I saw a really big shift in my business around 2018, about 2018 is when I saw probably the biggest shift in my business. By that point, I was already, starting to really establish myself as a professional photographer. I was able to buy a few years prior to that, I bought my first house solely on my photography income. And, I was already making some decent moves in my business, but it was that 2018 mark where I feel like I really just nailed down my niche, really got my style set in place. And then about a year later is when I also started to become a little bit more prominent in the education side of the industry, speaking at WPPI and other conferences around the country. But the number one priority for me has always been my clients and my business itself. The education thing, I don't really make a ton of money on it. I make a little bit, but it's more, I just do it for the passion. I really do like educating and helping others grow. I know I just love seeing the success that I've been able to personally get from learning from others in my industry. So I want to, pay it forward, so to speak, and help others kind of achieve their dreams and their goals through their passions as well.
Yeah, I can attest to the pay it forward part because I've been at some of your photo walks in Vegas, and they have been awesome. And so with mentioning education, what was the I know you say paying it forward, but what was that shift? Because I mean, education is always a slippery slope. So what prompted you to take that leap? Because I mean, a lot of people say, I love the education side of things, but I make so much money doing what I do as a photographer. Like, there's always that comparison of, are you a photographer or an educator? Are you the person that makes money off the industry, or are you the person that makes money in the industry? What's your take on that? But what was it that allowed you to confidently make that shift as an educator? Because you really do bring a lot of education to the table, especially when it comes to lighting.
Well, thanks, man. Thank you. Yeah, I think it was a combination of a couple different things. And going back to WPPI, that first year I went to WPPI, I was really intrigued and really fascinated by, these photographers that had this high level of success sharing their knowledge with everyone else. And I just was always really fascinated by that. I thought that was such a cool thing. And I remember thinking to myself at the time, if I can ever get to that level, right, of success, I want to be able to do the same and share my knowledge with the world. And, that's exactly what I did. And, not only has it been really fun to do that and helps me, just grow as a photographer through education, but I think another really big part has been connecting with other photographers. And I'm really big on building connections and relationships with people. I mean, it's the whole reason why you and I are here today. We've met at these conferences in the past, and it's what's enabled me to, make these relationships not only with other photographers, but businesses in the industry, and work and partner with some awesome companies like ProPrints, which is a company that I've been using for years. I've been using them actually ever since 2012, and I have all the photos in my back right here. I used with them. It's just been through my education. It's just been awesome ways to connect with photographers, companies, and really get, just kind of really be in the industry as opposed to working in the industry.
Absolutely, I love it. And, yeah, and you've been using them for a while, so you were with them when they were the original name. That's how far back I go as well. So
Yep,
we
yeah, the original name was CG Pro Prints.
CG Pro. Yeah, exactly. I remember that. No, and I look back. I always think about like when was it? I'm trying to always pinpoint when I first met every person that's ever been on the show, and I'm like, I think it was Las Vegas. I remember. I think it was the. I want to say it was when we formally like in the same room met, had drinks and everything. Was in WPPI in Las Vegas, and I remember you did the rooftop shoot on what is now called the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. It was the Mirage back then.
Yeah.
I remember you did the was it exotic cars photo shoot on the top of the on top of the parking garage.
Yeah, we got kicked out in 5 minutes. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was a very quick shoot, but I remember just that we were able to steal knowledge. But I took a lot of those little gems of like just using the one lights, the two lights, and how to be mobile. Because if you're a wedding photographer, and this is the point I'm bringing it full circle with the point I'm making, every wedding has a getaway car. Most of them do at least, and they usually rent something nice, and they usually get like a Rolls Royce or they get a Bentley. And I said, what better way to get that great shot, or that classic Mustang shot if they're gonna get away at night and everyone says, oh, you can't get a good picture because it's too dark, there's no light or whatever. I feel like this is those moments where we can say, "Oh, watch us shine." That's what I said. I love it when, yeah, I love getting natural light. I love beautiful natural light. But don't get me wrong. But when we get to pull out the strobes and really get to stand, separate ourselves from the pack, that's when I have the fun. It's like,
yeah, exactly. Going back on that whole philosophy of just simple lighting setups. I feel like people try to overthink lighting at weddings, and a lot of, at least my approach is, I do want to put some creative flair and really do some unique lighting at these weddings, but at the same time, you don't have all the time in the world to set up to do these elaborate shots. And I feel like there's a problem in the industry, especially over the past couple of years. This is a whole different subject, but there's a problem where photographers are kind of feeding into their ego too much. They're really concerned with building a following on Instagram and being, influencers, and they're not focusing so much on what's really important, which is the wedding couple's day. And unfortunately, I do think that in a way it's ruining the experience for our couples, which is what really matters. So I try to keep things very simple, very quick, so I can get the photos that the bride and groom or the couple is going to love, and then let them get back to enjoying their family and friends, which is honestly, above all else, is the most important thing at a wedding day, is spending time and celebrating with the people that you love the most. It's not the photography, it's not the DJ, it's not the food, it's the couple and their guests.
no, 100% agree. I mean, I actually recently had my second shooter was kept saying to me throughout the day, "Oh crap, we forgot to get BTS for this. We forgot to," and I got to the point and said, "Man, I don't even care." And it's not that I don't care. Like I want to, yeah, you want to build your following and everything. And I know we harp a lot about social media and digital marketing and all those
Mm-hmm.
different things. We know that the game and the industry has changed, but I mean, and this is a great caveat to this conversation, to our transition in the conversation we're having. I'd love to get more of your perspective on it. Like, how do you combat, being photographer over influencer, photographer over, what's the word, viral? I don't want to be the viral sensation. So, do you believe, like, to me, I really believe there's just consistency kills everything. If you can put out great images, forget, yeah, it's great to show your setups. It's great to get the behind the scenes. It's great to plug in each, product you're using and everything. But at the core of it all, was it a great picture? And I feel like let's focus on getting great pictures. And then we can do all the other stuff that, draws us. Because, no one cares how cool I was squatting there behind the scenes as long as I got the picture. The end result is what matters.
Yeah, I think right now, and there might be a lot that actually I know there is a lot of people that are going to disagree with me, but I think Instagram and TikTok is the biggest threat to our industry right now. I really truly believe that. It's great for a lot of things, but a lot of wedding couples don't really know what a good photographer or good wedding vendor is, right? They think they know. And, with this trend of, influencers and getting likes and getting views being so prominent right now, a lot of times what happens is you have these, these photographers, quote photographers, that, think that success comes in the form of, just getting as many likes as you can on a video. And what happens is when it actually comes to the day of, you fail and you're not getting what's important. I have my business partner with one of my other companies who's a videographer. He works a lot of high end weddings, and he works with a lot of these photographers that are charging $15,000 plus. And one of these things that he's noticing is a lot of these influencer photographers that are being flown in from all over the world are actually quite terrible at what they do, like they're great at creating content and creating engaging content on Instagram and on TikTok. But at the end of the day, that doesn't translate to being a good photographer. That doesn't translate to knowing, how to optimize a wedding day timeline, how to pose people, how to, use effective lighting when you have really strong highlights in a background. You need to balance your exposures in the foreground. So I honestly think that is the biggest threat to our industry right now. And I'm still trying to figure out how to combat that. But I really think that as an industry, people like you and I who've been doing this for so long, we really need to band together and, educate our couples on what a good photographer and a videographer or just any sort of wedding vendor actually is. You're not misguiding and misleading people. And that is one of the biggest challenges. And I do think that, we do need to buy in a little bit into the influencing thing and try to, feed into what people want, creating reels, creating that video content. But we need to do it in a way that respects the industry and still maintains maintains the values of what good photography should actually look like.
Now, do you think, I guess, a way to attack it? Because I'm kind of right there with you, and I refuse to follow trends, and I refuse to
Mm-hmm.
I put my energy in what I think is actually feasible. Like when I see the new photography trends of, oh, let's do these blurred out pictures, or let's do this, or let's do that.
Right.
I don't follow trends. I don't do the selective coloring, like things that to me I feel like come in waves with becoming more influencers over anything else. I feel like it's a wave, but I just feel like this is just a really long wave that we've been riding, and I'm waiting for it to crash finally, so then so the talent can rise to the top again. Because right now, if you have a strong following, it's almost like you're masking your inadequacies as a photographer because of your following. And I feel like that's the danger side, is if you're an influencer and you're basing everything on likes and influencing others, eventually they're going to see through it, and they're going to see the facade of you not knowing what to do or how to do it. And then it could in return hurt our industry even more, because you have the influencers that are charging astronomical rates sometimes, and then they're not delivering. Now the industry is saying, well, you know what, we were paying you guys this much money, you weren't delivering. Maybe we should make this, that's what worries me, that it becomes a trend of, affects what we make financially as photographers versus, our business owners in general, versus like, oh, the trend was this is what we were
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, well, and like I said, a lot of times people don't know what they don't know, right? So, you'll have these photos that people think that in their mind is good, but in reality, it's not, and it's trendy, right? When you're in average age, when you're getting married is like 28, right? I think that's the average age in the United States for men, and I think it's 26 for women, right? When you're that age, like, you're in your prime, right? You're looking your best. From a physical standpoint, you're looking your best. When you're looking back on your wedding photos and this is going to sound a little harsh, but in 30 years, when you're getting wrinkly and you're, maybe have a little extra baggage in places that you don't necessarily want, can you imagine looking back on your photos from 30 years ago and they're out of focus and they're blurry and they're not highlighting actually how good you look, right? I want to remember how good I looked back then, So going back to what you said, I really don't try to dig into the trends either. Sure, I might throw in like a couple photos that might be trending at the moment just to experiment and play around, but they're certainly not all of going to be like that. And I'm going to stick to my values as a photographer and what I think is going to be timeless.
And to defend myself, if anybody decides to go to my Instagram, Marvin Blue Photography and Film, quick plug, cheap plug. Now, if anybody decides to go in there and pull the engagement picture where I had the couple be still kissing, and then I got the crosswalk of people walking around them in blurry, that's not a trend. That is a timeless picture. I'm going to defend myself. And so before someone tries to call me out saying, "Hey, you followed you," I thought you didn't follow trends. I don't really. I still do what I like, and they were a cute couple. And in that moment, it was perfect because we were trying to take this picture, and we just kept getting people coming around. I just said, you know what, I'm gonna use it to my advantage because I'm in downtown Dallas, and I don't have time to wait for the entire area to clear out. So,
Right.
you know,
Right.
I
Well,
walk
awesome.
around with what I'm given. It's the same thing with at a wedding. You get so many people that surround the couple, and I just tell them, hey, when I say go, just be still and look at each other's eyes, just smile. Everyone's gonna have their phones taking pictures. I'll take care of the rest. And I did it, and it comes out amazing. Again, I want to create those iconic, timeless pictures for the couples because, like you said, 30 years from now, I want them to look back, and I want their grandkids to look back and be like, wow, grandma and grandpa looked amazing back then.
Yep, exactly.
And then they look at him and say, she still got it. But
Heck yeah.
nice. Oh, please tell me you're drinking. I wish are we drinking?
No, I'm not that exciting. This is just liquid IV.
Okay.
Just trying to get my electrolytes in.
Yes, you're much like me. I'm a fan of it because I, like an idiot, am having a midlife crisis. I'm training for a triathlon and a marathon, so I have been.
Oh, very cool.
Yes, I'm having fun with it. So outside of photography, we'll transition to that. What is Sean's thing? What do we know? What are you known for? What do you like to do? That just you want to escape photography for a little bit? What's your vice?
Yeah, no, I actually have a lot of hobbies. And if you're friends with me on Facebook, I think, which I know you are, but just as a blanket statement, if you're friends with me on Facebook, you'll see that that's a very true statement. I have a lot of passions aside from photography. I'm really into automobiles, so off-road vehicles, sports cars. I like to drive them, race them, talk about them, work on them, modify them, all sorts of. Basically, if it has four wheels, I'm interested in it. So really into cars. I'm really into fishing. Fishing's something that has always been a huge passion of mine, even longer than photography. I've been passionate about fishing my whole life. At the moment, I'm planning a 2-week long fishing trip to Alaska this summer. It's something I've been working on this week. I'm putting together a whole itinerary. I'm really passionate about music. I often travel around the country to go to different music festivals. Last year, I went to 3 different music festivals in 3 different states, as well as a bunch of local shows. In addition to that, I'm really into collecting watches. I love, timepieces and.
Oh, yeah. I think we had a big, I think that was another thing we connected on in Vegas because it was between you, myself, I want to say Charles.
Yep.
Got
Charles.
the boys from Cheetah Stand. I think everybody was showing out like their Seikos, their Rolexes, their Breitlings. Everybody had their, and I was like, this is my travel piece. And somebody's like, that's still an expensive watch. I'm like, he said, how's that your travel watch? And it's almost $1,000. I'm like, you wear an Apple Watch, it's almost $1,000. So it's the same thing. Like, don't, people like, I could never wear a $2,000 watch. I'm like, you're wearing an Apple Watch. That's right there. So you actually
It's true. It's true.
I always say, obviously my daily watch is probably my Apple Watch is the most worn one. But, when the suit comes on, we're at formal dinners. I don't care about my heart rate. I want to put on those statement pieces. I want to put
exactly.
Those little, as they say, my time is valuable. That's why we do.
Right. And I don't, and nothing against Apple Watches, but I don't consider them a watch. I consider them a piece of a functional piece of technology. I wouldn't, it just happens to be on your wrist. I don't consider it a watch, but the thing I love about watches though, is it hits, it targets so many different hobbies, right? So it attracts people who are into jewelry, it attracts people who are into art, and it attracts people who are into like engineering and mechanical components and how, people who really appreciate how things are put together and how things work. So for me, I appreciate all 3, and it's kind of the perfect hobby for me.
Yeah, that's eventually I'm probably gonna look like that guy that's gonna have on the Apple Watch on one wrist and then the timepiece on the other one, and just be
Kevin O'Leary does that
exactly. It's hilarious. I was like, I haven't got to that point yet, but I know I'm gonna get to an age where that's gonna be me, where it's like I'm like Kevin O'Leary, Ric Flair. He has the Fitbit on one hand, or he'll have the Fitbit underneath the Rolex, which is hilarious.
I'm all for it, man.
Nice. So besides fishing and music, I mean, you're a man of you are like an artist at heart because a lot of that stuff is art related.
Yeah, no, I love being creative. I love, having creative outlets. I mean, I'm like cooking too, I love entertaining and bringing people together. That's a really big passion of mine as well. I don't know if that's kind of more in the creative world or arena.
It can be, especially I think we've seen it ourselves with just when we hang out, when we do get to hang out, it's like, I always say, to me, it's like coming to see family because we all, when you're around like-minded individuals, to me, that is the safest space possible. That is a happy
100%.
place. Like, I mean, when I'm, in the grind, being behind the camera is when I feel free and stuff, and I just want to be creative. But obviously, I stay into, especially when I'm on the job. Okay, the clients want this, they want that. I'm here to take a picture of a wedding. I don't need to go outside of what I know is going to execute and give them what they want. If the opportunity comes, I'll do it. And that's why I'm a firm believer that at least once a month as a photographer, set up your own shoot, meet a new
100%.
model. If you can't afford to pay a model, find a new model and just say, hey, look, here's some of my work. Does anybody want to do anything? I'm available on this day. You'll be shocked at how many people want to get out there and take a shot. And then the beauty of it is if you get someone that's not experienced, now you get to test how much you've grown and how much you can direct. Because if you can't direct, you're going to be ineffective as a photographer.
Yeah, and no, I completely agree. And one way that I do that is I like to enter, not all of them because that would be too crazy, but I like to enter some of the photo competition, not necessarily for the recognition. It is nice to get it when you win, but it really helps keep me on top of my game and helps me push myself harder and allows me to refine some of my photo techniques. So that's one way that I'm able to do that. And, I don't really, I don't ever shoot for competitions. It's something I've never really done. I do really want to do it specifically this winter if I can. I do have a couple ideas in my mind that I'd like to try out, but yeah, it's not something I've ever really done specifically for competitions, but I want to just push myself and challenge myself a little bit more this year.
Nice. And I'm glad you mentioned compositions because I get this question a lot and I'm, you're a perfect person to ask. If you're someone that's new to the competition scene and you want to take those, those initial steps to put yourself out there to test where you're at amongst your peers, what competitions do you recommend for those getting started in print competition?
Well, it depends on your industry, right? And it also depends on like your style. So, there's certain competitions that are going to cater to people who are in different industries, right? So like if you're more of like a traditional if you're more into traditional portraiture, WPPI the icon print competitions are a really good one to be a part of. If you're a wedding photographer, Fearless is a really good one, or WPJA, same another. There's other competitions like World's Best Wedding Photos. There's the print competition over at PPA. So I don't enter too many personally, but those are just a few of the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. So I would just research, what really what style attracts you the most, and enter photos into that segment.
Yeah. And I mean, and the caveat on that, I always say, print competition is like a marathon. You can't finish the marathon until you take the first step. So really, just take the first step. Don't worry about winning or losing. Just worry about putting it out there for the first time and using it as an opportunity to grow. No, I know the fear behind it. I still have fear every time I enter something. I still have that fear because it is being judged in a way. You are
right.
Your images, your creativity, everything that you put into that is going to be put on display. And I know it's tough when you feel like you put your heart and soul into something and then somebody comes and just tears it apart, tells you that it's not, merit worthy or whatever. Take it for what it is, a grain of salt. You listen to in between all that to see where you could have gotten better and take that piece and use that to get better instead of necessarily saying, fuck these guys, they don't know what they're talking about. I work too hard. I got paid 10 grand for this wedding. They don't know shit about this. I don't care about what people who haven't done a wedding in 10 years have to say. Push that aside. That's, in a way, it's an ego check. So check your ego, take the feedback for what it is as an opportunity to get better. But, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. I know it's tough. And this is me speaking to the audience directly. Like, don't be afraid to be great.
Right. And it is, it can be very daunting to put your work out there. And you do have to take it all with a grain of salt, right? Because, art is very subjective, and there are, photos that I've submitted that I know are amazing and I know are incredible, and they've won awards in other competitions, but then in like, maybe Icon, for example, they score super low. Does that mean it's a bad photo? Absolutely not. It just means that, maybe the judge that looked at it, had a very subjective point of view, or, maybe it just didn't resonate with one set of judges as well as it did with another. Doesn't mean you're a bad photographer. And that's why it's so important to constantly submit work. It does, because a lot of times it is a numbers game, but at the same time, it is subjective, and it allows you to maybe see and pay attention to some trends of what will enable you to become a better photographer. So, if you're getting, similar feedback on all your images and there seems to be a pattern, then okay, maybe I need to work on my posing or my hand placement, for example, or maybe my lighting isn't as good as it could be, or maybe my my locations are crappy. So there's so many different things that you can take away from constantly submitting that you're never going to learn if you just submit, maybe once or twice a year. Like, you got to be constantly submitting to actually get somewhere and grow as a photographer.
Absolutely, 100% agree. And another thing you can do, and this is a great segue into giving you a cheap plug, but before you enter into competition, get with the groups and that give out feedback. I believe you guys do a weekly or bi-weekly live review on Facebook. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, so we once a month we do a live image critique in my Facebook group, and it is live, but we allow people to submit their images anonymously. So yeah, if you are maybe a little bit more hesitant or a little bit shy, you can submit a photo anonymously, and then every month myself and then a new guest, will come on and give you some feedback on your posing, your lighting, your creativity. And we've already had some absolutely incredible guests. This year alone, we've had Two Man, we've had Jerry Guionis, we've had Andre Brown, we've had Jason Vincent, we've had
You've had the hitters.
just so many amazing. Yeah, Scott Robert Lim.
Yeah,
I
I
can keep
love
going.
watching. Yeah, and I love watching it just because it allows me to say, "Oh, I've got something similar to that. I wonder what they're going to say about it," and then I get to hear that, and it's like, "Oh, in a way, I'm learning too, and I'm learning vicariously through my peers." And I will make it a point to, enter in some of my prints because I am going to make it a point to now to really put it out there with print competitions.
Yeah.
Going forward, simply because that's how my plan to fight the viral influencer movement is to just be consistent, show up, and just put the money where your mouth is. You're an influencer, but I'm an award-winning photographer. And we can go bat to bat and throw egos out there, but I'm putting my money where my mouth is. You can only influence for so long, but now it's time to prove it.
That's true.
So that's the way I'm going to attack the influencer industry.
I love that.
Is I say, hey, you know what? Be that, this is what we do. Let me see you do it, because I can hold a camera and say something cool and put it on TikTok, but it's not hard to be an influencer. Again, you guys are making it seem like it's hard. It's really not.
Right.
Not saying I don't respect it. It's just, to me, I feel like it's just another wing of what we do, creating content. It's just content creation. It's a version of what we do, except it's a little bit more less polished, if that makes sense. The barrier to entry is very low. It's not as competitive. And then the sustainment really is just, as long as you're creating content, you can always have good content, because it's just taking what you have and then meshing it together right.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I'm a big fan of the monthly reviews that you guys do on Facebook, because again, you learn from it. And when you have some of the best in the industry helping you get better, it's free education, and I'm all about the free.
Yeah, no, and I learn a lot. I learn a lot myself from doing those. Like, I've learned so much from my guests that have come on. In fact, and I do record every single one, and I just recently gave, I haven't published it anywhere, but I recently gave my first presentation on posing, and I actually used some clips from my live image critiques in my presentation to talk about certain posing techniques. So yeah, it's a great learning experience. And if you're not already members, it's called the Portrait Photographers Resource on Facebook. It's free to join, and I would encourage you all not only to join, but to also submit to our monthly image critiques.
Yeah, like I said, it goes back to closed mouths don't get fed. The less you do, the less far. I guess I can't talk now. The less you do, the less distance you'll cover. But the more you do, the more you're going to grow. And
absolutely,
these are the opportunities, again, that I preach about all the time. Take opportunities to grow. Take opportunities to get better, because you're going to blink and you're going to look up, and are you going to still be on day one, or are you going to be on that 1 day trail? And I'm always in that search for that 1 day. One day I'm going to be the guy that took a clean sweep at competitions. Well, where's my day one at? Day one's going to be finally getting out there, doing it more, instead of doing it the once a year or the twice a year. And then,
exactly.
It's like, what? Just putting it out, pushing my own ego to the side, and I'm open book about it. That's where one of my biggest struggles was, is when you see people you came up with, your peers, and then you start seeing them win the awards, and you're like, dang, we started together. What did they do differently? And they haven't done anything different. They just kept working and being consistent, and they kept
100%.
putting themselves out there. And I think that's where, especially, I love speaking to you about it, because the competitions that you've done, like Pro Prince, as I use an example, to me, the Invitational first off, they're inviting the best of the best. So it isn't, influencer driven. It isn't. It's literally based on pure talent and literally like when you look at the work that is put out there in that competition alone. I always say that's the constant reminder that there are levels to this game, and I love seeing it because I love greatness, and just to see the work that y'all are putting out in that competition, it's like, holy shit, it's next level. So
Yeah, it was very humbling, and I was very honored to be invited to compete in the invitational. It was a lot of fun, and it was a great experience.
and then I think they did a pop up like spot. Were you a part of that one they did in Vegas a couple years ago, where they was just like a that morning they got up like super ass early, like at 4 in the morning.
I did get invited to attend that one as well. However, I couldn't make it. That was it was just way too crazy of a week for me. I think that was like my busiest WPPI that I've ever had, and I had multiple speaking engagements and networking events happening every single day, and I just couldn't make the time for it, unfortunately. But from what I saw, it was a really cool experience and a really cool opportunity, and I'm a little bummed I couldn't be a part of that first one, but I was able to be a part of the second one that happened this past year. I was a finalist and I got to do it, and it was really cool and it was really fun.
I mean, you're amongst great company when it comes to that because we've been tracking that. I know I'm friends with Rick. He entered, and I mean the stuff he put out was amazing. I saw your stuff. I'm trying to remember all the names, but yeah, if you go to proprints.com, you can look at it, guys. It's a couple again. You want to see some amazing work and be reminded why we love doing what we love doing. This is a constant reminder because you get to watch greatness and in its authenticity.
Yep, absolutely.
So what's next for Sean, man? What do you got? What's on the horizon?
Yeah, for me, it's just continuing to grow my business. I'm putting a lot of energy now into starting or kind of continuing a new project that I started this past year, which was an associate brand. Offering photo and video at more volume. So I'm really focused right now on trying to grow that as much as I can. It's been a little challenging as is starting any new business, but we've been successful at it, and it's been a lot of fun so far. And so I'm pleased to say that we just ended our first year doing pretty well. We were able to get a lot of work for our associates, which was awesome. A lot of them were able to pay their bills because of the work we were able to give them, and that was super cool to see. And then as far as the education side of things, I'm kind of just doing steady on the education thing. I don't really have any super crazy big plans coming up for that, but I do have a couple workshops that are coming up in 2020. I'm going to be, of course, speaking at WPPI again for the 7th year in a row, but I'm also hosting a After Imaging USA workshop at the Geek Kodo headquarters in Dallas, which we'll be announcing here in probably about a week or so. I'll be giving more details about that. And then I also have a 2-day workshop coming up in Vancouver, Canada. And that's going to be in, I think, the first weekend of May. And that one's going to be a ton of fun.
Well, I can tell you that I will be seeing you in Dallas that you're coming to my city.
I sure am. Yep.
Roll out the red carpet. I literally was like, I don't think I'm gonna go. And now everyone's like, I'm gonna be at I'm gonna be at Imaging. I'm like, well, if everybody's coming to my city, I gotta roll out the red carpet. I gotta.
Oh, you have to,
Terry
man.
Blacks. I'm already making the arrangements to do a Terry Blacks trip, get everybody there, let me see how barbecue is actually done and done right.
Oh, dude, the barbecue in Dallas is the best. Some of the best I've had it is the best I've had. And just in Texas in general, honestly. I mean, you don't know what good barbecue is until you've had barbecue in Texas. Like it's insane. It really is insane how much barbecue sucks everywhere else. I'm not like
It's true.
No, and I'm not a barbecue. I would consider myself like an amateur foodie. Like I love going and seeing and trying new food and going to restaurants. And I've just never seen with this specific style of food, barbecue specifically. I've never seen the biggest disparity, or like just the different contrast of food with barbecue in Texas versus everywhere else. I mean, for example, barbecue in Colorado is basically dog food. It's not good. It's really not.
I think the only other place I've gone to, honestly, in recent times would be St. Louis, but they do because they do a different style of it.
It's a different style. I think theirs is like, yeah. I think they do like a Kansas City style barbecue, which is very popular in the Midwest. And then there's also from my understanding, I'm not a barbecue expert by any means, but I think there's like 3 different styles of barbecue, 3 popular which is Texas barbecue, like Kansas City style, and then Tennessee or like kind of Nashville,
I
that
think
kind of.
Nashville and Carolinas kind of have a blend almost. It's
Yeah,
fusion.
exactly.
I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
someone's like, no, that's not how our barbecue's done. I'm from Nashville. This is not now.
yeah,
To get a
exactly.
riot start over barbecue. No, I mean, it's funny when a fellow Coloradian, or is that the word?
Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado. Yes, when Zane was out here, I took her to Terry Black's, and she went crazy because she saw the smokers and she saw all the briskets, and she's like, "Man," I said, "Yeah, they're gonna go through all that in a day." She's like, "They eat that much barbecue?" I was like, "Yeah." And
I
he was like,
can't eat that much. I get the meat
"Oh,
sweats.
oh yeah." We had a little meat sweats. I said, "Your eyes are gonna be bigger than your stomach when you go here. Like you're gonna see
Yeah.
all the
No,
brisket."
and good barbecue, you shouldn't have to put barbecue sauce of any kind on it. Like if it's really legit Texas barbecue, you shouldn't need any barbecue sauce. And I know like the further you get east, like towards, Tennessee and all that, they are a little bit more heavy-handed with the sauces, and that's just their style. There's nothing wrong with that. But it is pretty incredible that, to have barbecue with literally no, just a dry rub and that's it.
I always say sauce is an option, not a requirement when you're in
Yeah,
Texas.
exactly, for
Like,
sure.
that's how we do it here in the Lone Star State. Now it's cool.
Right?
I'm glad that more people that I know are coming out here to imaging. So it
Yeah.
makes going to imaging more of an excuse, especially like, again, it's right down the street for me. If I don't go, I feel like I wouldn't be representing my city and my region, and I'm always harping about Texas showing up. So I got to make sure I show up for my friends, and I look
Yeah,
forward to
dude.
seeing you guys, man. Because like to me, it's seeing all your friends again. You go through this year grind of like working and building, and then when you see each other, like, oh, you get to have that deep breath and sharing each other's success and everything, celebrate each other. That's the best part about the conferences for me.
Yeah, yeah. So you will be seeing me towards the end of imaging. I won't be able to be there the whole time, but I will be there for probably the last 2 days, as well as a day after for my workshop. And then I'll be at WPPI. I might be at Shutterfest again. I'm not sure. It's 50-50. We'll see, but definitely will be at imaging. Definitely will be at WPPI.
You got any cool shoots that you're planning for WPPI again?
Unfortunately, I'm not, and the reason is because I actually have a wedding the day before and the day after WPPI.
Oh, man,
Yeah,
I
so it is.
always end up getting the Saturday before WPPI. Like I haven't got,
Yeah,
I always get the last minute because one of my venues that I'm contracted with will be like, "Hey, we got a last minute booking. Can you do?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can." It's like, let me go ahead and make a quick, 3-4 grand before Vegas because it already.
yeah, no, exactly. So I'm a little bummed this year because, as you know, every year I do try to host like a free photo walk or free get together, and unfortunately, I just don't have time this year. I just won't be there, so won't be happening this year, sadly. But I'm gonna make the most out of my experience there, and I'll be there.
Yeah, you know what? That's not, even though you can't do it, that's an opportunity for someone to step up and
Definitely.
host it in Sean's place. Just look at what he's done in years past and just copy that same model. You can't go wrong. Exotic cars, great people. Just try not to get kicked out of the rooftop.
Yep, exactly.
Or do like we did, just run them through downtown Las Vegas, and we're in old Vegas, just doing stuff right there in front of everybody. And I said, to me, I thought that was a unique shoot because I always say, when you're shooting a wedding, it's so chaotic. How do you shoot and block out all the noise? To me, I think that was the greatest lesson we did at our photo walk was shooting amongst the uncontrollable elements. And we're not talking about rain and harsh light. We're talking about people and the chaos that is, Vegas. Because weddings can get like that where you can't get people to get out the way. So how do you work around it? So.
Exactly. Yeah.
But hey, man, look, thank you so much for your time. I don't want to take up too much of your day. I
Yeah, all
appreciate
good.
you being gracious with your time and everything, and just making time to be on the show. I know we talked about it for a while, so I'm glad I finally get you on here.
Yeah, dude, thank you so much for having me. It was an honor to be here. I'm happy to speak to your audience anytime you need me to. It was great just talking shop with you, man. And
Absolutely.
I absolutely love, your approach on how you're gonna just stay relevant and kind of combat this whole influencer thing that we're dealing with right now. So it was really awesome to hear your insight and get your perspective on that whole situation as well.
Absolutely. Where can everybody find you on social media?
Yeah, best way to find me on social media on Instagram is just at Sean Lara Photography. And then, of course, on Facebook, if the best way to keep in touch with me from a photography standpoint is just through my education group, which again is the Portrait Photographers Resource. If you Google that or if you Facebook that, you should find it.
Yeah, we'll make sure we plug all your information in the show notes and on the YouTube show notes as well. So you guys want to make sure you can find Sean. If you haven't found him, you need to find him. Again, he's a wealth of knowledge. And again, we thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me, man. It was such a pleasure.
That's it for this week's show. Again, thanks for tuning in. Remember to like, subscribe, and share with others. Leave those reviews and check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Until then, see you next week.